Miami Hurricanes have a good collection of talent, but they'll never be a good football team until they can find a way to stop constantly shooting themselves in the foot.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Every Miami Hurricanes fan is hurting today. You're hurting because of a missed opportunity to get things right after a completely unnecessary loss the week prior. We certainly have moved on to Georgia Tech because now we have yet another loss to talk about and a difficult game at home looming this coming Saturday against Clemson. But Miami missed that opportunity. Could have put Georgia Tech behind you. And in the first half, it looked like they were on track to do just that. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And sincerely, thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. I know it's tough. Maybe some of you watching this are fans of other teams and you want to see how miserable is this guy today. But whether you're a Miami fan or a Miami hater, thank you for being here. Locked On Canes is on every single day for free on YouTube and for free wherever you get your podcasts, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. First half wasn't perfect in Miami's 41-31 loss last night in North Carolina. You missed an opportunity to score what looked like a sure touchdown when Henry Parrish fumbled inside the goal line to turn it over to North Carolina, taking 7 points off the board for Miami, right? You had some costly penalties, unforced errors in that first half, and yet you went into the locker room with a 17-14 lead, largely because of your defense putting their Superman capes on. But here's the thing. If the offense doesn't do its part and the offense keeps turning it over and giving short fields to an opposing O that's as good as the one Drake Maye and Tez Walker and Georgia Tech lead, you can't expect your defense to be perfect for the entire game when the offense is playing zero semblance of complementary football whatsoever. All right? Because the defense was doing their share of bailing out the offense. Did the offense have its moments? Yes. One of the most brilliant plays of Miami's season so far. We're not going to remember this because unfortunately it came at a loss. Well, I probably won't forget it, but that touchdown pass, that 35-yarder that Tyler Van Dyke made to Jacolby George when he was getting absolutely drilled, still stood in there, made a big-time deep throw. Jacolby George did an awesome job tracking that football for the touchdown catch. That's the sort of play where if Miami goes on to win that game, we're talking about it for the rest of the year. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way when that sort of play happens in a loss, all right? But Miami was still able to do enough, sacking Drake Maye 4 times in the first half. I haven't seen Maye look that uncomfortable in his year and a half as Tar Heels starting quarterback. Job well done in that first half by Lance Guidry's defense. They were dialing everything up right. And I'll tell you, Rueben Bain, we've got ourselves a great one in number 44. If we had 85 guys on scholarship with Rueben Bain's attitude and his heart, we would be 4-2 right now. We would be 6-0 at this point. He played a hell of a game. He was reportedly in tears after the game because honestly, going by his high school resume, he's probably lost more games in the last 2 weeks than he did in 4 years at Miami Central. That's not a guy who's used to losing football games. In the second half is where the train came off the tracks, okay? You were thinking, hey, Miami is in the first half looking more physical, making Drake Maye uncomfortable. We haven't really seen Tez Walker fully explode just yet, who had just been cleared the week prior, so he was still getting his feet wet as a North Carolina Tar Heel. If Miami can keep doing what they're doing in that first half, they can do even better if they don't fumble at the goal line. If they don't self-inflict as many wounds in the second half, Miami can continue and win that football game. It didn't play out that way. Now, I don't want to do this thing that we sometimes do when we cover a losing team and we don't give any credit to the opponent. That's not what I'm here to do. North Carolina on the road, number 12 team in the country, a future NFL quarterback, one of the most dynamic offenses in the country, not just in the ACC. This one's a little bit different than, losing to a bad Georgia Tech team at home. Georgia Tech, who also played much better than I expected they would last week, but this one's a little bit different, right? When you're going up against Drake Maye and Tez Walker and Omarion Hampton, who I didn't expect Miami to get gashed on the ground the way that they did, you have to be a lot closer to perfect to win a football game like that. And in the second half, Miami was far, far from it. We'll talk about what went wrong. I know our friend Coach Hayes likes to do the good, bad, and the ugly. It was mostly bad and ugly in this one. So I want you to keep it locked right here. We'll try to talk through this together because, listen, Canes fans, we need to be a community right now. We love this team. Call it therapy, call it whatever you want to, but we need to band together. We need to talk through what happened last night, and we're going to keep doing it right here on an all-new episode of Locked On Canes. I'll tell you, man, something that lifts my spirits just a little bit is Game Time, because I always know I can get last-minute tickets and the best possible deals. Sometimes the very best deals happen day before, day of the event at Game Time. Buying tickets at the last minute to a big event should not be stressful. You can get last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, whether that's a sporting event, a concert, a comedy show. You can see the view of your seat before you buy, and most importantly, you get the Game Time guarantee. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. So I'm telling you guys, this will change the way you buy tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. To the everydayers who are here with us, good times, bad times, I've had my share. Thank you so much for being here. And if you guys do want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, you can sign up with the link in the show description below to become a Locked On Canes insider. But first, we have to lick our wounds here, all right? Early in the second half, it looked as though the defense, Miami's defense, in this 41-31 loss, they were going to pick up where they left off. It was 17-14. Miami had the lead at halftime. Now, you had another self-inflicted wound early in that second half, a bad center quarterback exchange. Matt Lee snapped it way to the left. Tyler Van Dyke couldn't corral it on the turf. Turnover in North Carolina's favor. They get the football in Miami's territory, but the defense was able to get the stop. Now, part of that was North Carolina, penalties, holding calls, but Miami was able to get the football back. All that they lost in that turnover was field position, essentially. But then the Hurricanes had to shoot themselves in the foot again. Guys, this is the type of stuff you cannot survive. When, after getting the football back, Tyler Van Dyke throws an interception that gives the Tar Heels the football basically in the red zone. It was at the 21-22 yard line. And again, they tried to self-sabotage, did the Tar Heels. They faced a 3rd down and 20 and were able to turn that play into a touchdown. North Carolina scored touchdowns on 3rd and 20s and 3rd and 18 situations in this football game. The crazy thing is, guys, if you had told me this stat line before the game, if you told me that Carolina would commit 14 penalties for 147 lost penalty yards and still win the game by 10 points, and by the way, wasn't really as close as 10 points because Miami was able to, score some desperation touchdowns late in the game. But if you told me North Carolina would win despite 14 penalties for 147 yards, you tell me that pregame, I tell you you're crazy. But then if you tell me that the Miami Hurricanes have 2 interceptions from your quarterback who's now thrown 5 INTs in his past 2 games, if you tell me that you have an assistant coach, Lance Guidry, who gets you a 15-yard penalty for storming onto the field when they were trying to call a timeout, and that costs you a touchdown. If you told me that Miami Hurricanes would fumble inside the freaking goal line when they're about to score a touchdown, then I'd say, you know what? That sounds about right. And the other thing that we saw play out was you can only expect your defense to be perfect or close to it for so long against an offense that good when your own offense keeps committing unforced errors and can't give you a breather off to the side. Because, folks, I give North Carolina a lot of credit because what wasn't working that well for them in the first half, which was the running game outside of a couple Drake Maye scrambles, started to work for them in a big way. I was very anxious to see how Miami would do against Omarion Hampton, the North Carolina running back, because heading into that game last night, Miami had given up exactly 0 100-yard rushing performances, okay? Best rushing defense at the time. I don't think they are anymore, but best rushing defense at the time in college football. Hampton goes 24 carries, 197 yards, and a touchdown. That's 8.2 yards per carry for North Carolina's top running back. And guys, as you could see, Miami's defense was starting to get tired in that second half. North Carolina's offensive line was starting to push that pile and get even extra yards for Hampton. And it allowed North Carolina, when they were having success running the football up the middle, they could start to call end around gadget play type of stuff and gash Miami on the perimeter as well. Tez Walker, recently cleared to play, North Carolina wide receiver. I know he's good. Shouldn't have been that good. The way he was getting behind our defensive backs, Jaden Davis included. Walker, 6 catches, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns. And unfortunately, on the other side, Jacolby George had the type of performance. You would remember this if Miami had won the game. You don't remember it because they lost. Because, listen, Tyler Van Dyke, I know that the numbers, if you just look at the stats, they look pretty good last night. 391 yards, 4 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. It wasn't good. Was not good for TVD, who's now thrown 5 interceptions in his last 2 games. Unacceptable. It is. But he did make a phenomenal play near the end of that second quarter. That touchdown pass that Van Dyke, as he was getting drilled, stood into the pocket, took a big hit, and made a big boy throw. 35 deep yards to Jacolby George, who did an awesome job tracking that football with his speed to catch a touchdown. That's the type of play. If you win the game, everyone remembers that for the rest of the season. You lose the game, that's probably going to be, unfortunately for Jacolby and Tyler, that play is going to be forgotten pretty quick, but that was a big-time play. That was a huge play in that game. And things came off the tracks. You look at some of the other team stats from last night. North Carolina outgained Miami 508 to 482. You shouldn't be giving up 508 total yards. Even if you're facing the 1999 St. Louis Rams offense, you shouldn't be giving up that much to anybody. Rushing yards, 235 to 91 in North Carolina's favor. 235. Miami was only giving up 58 rushing yards per game heading into this one. Penalties. This was the one where North Carolina, they tried to beat themselves here. 14 penalties for 147 yards. Miami only had 7 penalties for 69 yards, which is still too much, but by comparison, it is what it is. Hurricanes had 28 first downs to 24. Neither team was good on third down. Hurricanes were dreadful, 3 of 11 on third down. Carolina was 5 for 16, but they did get touchdowns on a 3rd and 20 and a 3rd and 18. So even if you're not going to win a lot of your third downs, you win a couple of your third downs like that, that's a recipe for success for North Carolina. Hurricanes sacked Drake Maye 5 times. They only actually had 11 sacks all season coming into this one, which is not indicative of the type of pressure Miami's been bringing to opposing quarterbacks, but they were able to sack Maye 5 times today. And Miami did get a couple of late touchdowns. I think we learned some lessons in this game. We'll talk about what we learned from this one. And guys, again, I know feels like the sky is falling, but let me say this. Right now, we have no choice but to hope this team can cut down on the errors. And we can only right now support the head coach and the coaches that are in place, because none of that is changing anytime soon. We have to trust that this staff can still recruit despite the losing streak that they're in. Because again, if you get more Rueben Bains and CC Maui-Noahs into this program, eventually things are going to get better. Believe me, hopefully things can get better this season. But a couple of things I'd like to see in the games moving forward. We will talk about that and so much more right here on this episode. We're only getting started on Locked On Canes. Guys, it's an NFL Sunday today, Monday Night Football tomorrow, whole slate of college football coming up this week. I hope you're taking advantage at prizepicks.com and the PrizePicks mobile app. PrizePicks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money during this football season. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and then place your entry, right? With the PrizePicks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. That's amazing. For NFL games and college football top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. That's amazing. On PrizePicks, you get quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stats. That's what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Guys, I've been using PrizePicks for about 3 years. It's so much fun. Again, go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. And again, the Hurricanes are going to have to shake this one off quickly because they're back home for Clemson next week, which is not going to be an easy game. Miami is about to drop out of the top 25. There's no way you stay in. Probably shouldn't have stayed in after the Georgia Tech loss. There's no way you stay in this time around. I'll tell you, we saw definitely in that fourth quarter when Miami was playing from behind, trying to make the game interesting, I think we're seeing reasons why Brashard Smith needs to get on the field more. Miami has been so reliant, and I understand it, on their top 3 receivers. And again, Restrepo catches 11 balls yesterday. Jacolby George had a monster game, 6 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. Colby Young didn't have a great game, but he was on the field a lot. But Brashard Smith caught a 54-yard touchdown, 3 catches for 90 yards. Isaiah Horton, I need to see him more involved. He was making some tough catches, 4 catches for 52 yards in the game. I think, if anything, Shannon Dawson needs to look at what happened in that game and say, we need to mix it up. We need to spice it up a little bit more in the receiving core because we do have more guys who are knocking on the door for more playing time. We can't be, 100% or 90% with X, George, and Young on the field all the time. And then another thing that, again, I know this is all situational and it's what every single down calls for. This is not necessarily what they game plan to do or not to do yesterday, but 0 catches for the tight end position. I know we still haven't seen Elijah Arroyo. He's finally suiting up, but we haven't seen him play. I would have thought and hoped that after Riley Williams scored a big touchdown last week against Georgia Tech, I mean, big for him. Obviously, Miami still lost that game, that we would see a little bit more of Riley getting used as a weapon in the passing game. Cam McCormick, best blocking tight end in the business, but sometimes that dude looks open, and maybe we need to throw him the football a little bit more often. Maybe we need to start utilizing the running backs out of the backfield catching passes more than they do, because the only catch I remember for a running back, A.J. Allen had 2 catches in the game, but those were like kind of emergency dump-offs when Tyler Van Dyke is flushed out of the pocket and he's either going to get sacked or throw it away. Instead, he dumps it up to A.J. Allen for a couple of yards. Those are the only running back receptions that I remember in the game, and here we are. So, guys, I'm going to open things up for the next week because, again, I know that this didn't go the way that I wanted it to. I was really, really hoping that Miami would exercise the Georgia Tech Demons and get a bounce-back win on the road against North Carolina. And we can talk about how well they responded from adversity. Instead, in this game, first half, it looked like they were responding from the previous week's adversity. They looked good overall. Self-inflicted wounds, yes, but Miami played a good first half. They had a 17-14 lead. And then as soon as the offense and Tyler Van Dyke created adversity in that second half in the form of an interception, the entire team buckled. All the knees on that team, figuratively speaking, that's what happened in that second half, all right? And then by the time Miami's offense, throwing deep downfield, started to have some success again, it was really too little too late. You know, when Miami did score touchdowns, they tried for onside kicks, and Andy Borregales is not bad at that. Miami came close. Those were not bad onside kicks, but neither of them were recovered by the Canes. They were both recovered by the Tar Heels. And so, yeah, throughout the week, I want to open it up to you guys. If you're a member of our Locked On Insiders texting group, be texting me your questions, your thoughts. I'm going to get to as many of those as I possibly can. I want to give you guys a forum this week to be voices on this show. If you follow us on Twitter/X, you can follow the show at Locked On Canes. And if you follow us at Locked On Canes, we will follow you back. And if you send us tweets this week, questions, observations, frustrations, we're going to be reading a lot of those on the show this week as well. So I hope to hear from you guys. And again, this team they have good players, but they're not a good football team until they can cut down on the mental errors and the unforced errors and the turnovers. And hopefully we can start to do that. We will talk to you guys again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.